Hi, I'm Pati, and welcome back to A Small Geeky Chica Figures. Today we're doing another Nendoroid clothing video. So as you can see, I've made a bunch of shirts for my Nendoroid dolls. If you've been following me on TikTok or Instagram, mostly TikTok, you've seen that I've been slowly working on them kind of assembly line style, where one day I cut all the fabric, the other day I sewed all the necklines, the other day I did one of the hems, and I did the other hems, and then I sewed them all together. I meant to originally kind of time myself to see how long it would take, but because I got a little overambitious and picked 19 different pieces of fabric, I didn't quite do that, and then I got distracted by a whole bunch of other things that I didn't actually get to finish it all in 1 week like I meant to. But here you have the end results of all my work. I am gonna run you through some of the in-process videos I have along the step of the way. Some of them are going to be from TikTok, some of them are going to be ones I filmed. But once we're done going through it, and just a warning, this is not a tutorial, this is just kind of a work in progress video, I'll go over with my thoughts on how successful this was. So let's backtrack and go back to the past and see from when we started working on all of these. So my aim for this was to recreate the shirt I had made for Shirogane. I started by picking out around 19 different fabrics, which was honestly too much, but oh well. I cut them all down to size to make one shirt from each. Once they were cut, I ironed them flat to make them easier to work with. Honestly, I should have ironed the fabric before cutting, but I was feeling kind of lazy, so I did it at this point. I then drew the pattern on each piece to use as a sewing guide. In the end, it wasn't totally necessary, but it did help a bit. Once ready, I started sewing the neckline hem on each. I used the smaller piece of the same fabric to sew together the circle for the neckline. And then I flipped them inside out so the other fabric was on the inside. I ironed them flat, and then I sewed around the neckline again. It's not perfect, but I found it as an easy way to make the neckline since it is pretty small. And it works. So I made all 19 necklines this way. I then used some anti-fraying glue to secure the edges of the inner fabric, so obviously they wouldn't fray. And then I set out to work on the hems for the bottom of the shirts. I used cardstock to make an 1/8 inch guide to help me fold the hems. Usually with this you make it with just one fold, but I wanted to double fold it so there wouldn't be any fraying on the inside. Again, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. So I ironed all the bottom hems of all 19 shirts this way before sewing. And then I sewed all 19 bottom hems, which took a while, but it wasn't so bad since it's just a straight stitch. Once all 19 bottom hems were ready, I repeated the process with the sleeves. So I used the cardstock again to iron the hems down for the sleeves to make them easier to sew. And then I sewed them all down together. I didn't worry so much about the corners since I would eventually be cutting that off anyway. Once that was done, I did draw the pattern for where I was gonna sew for the sides back over the fabric so it'd be easier to follow. So I sewed both sides of the shirts together, and then I cut off all that excess fabric. I also got some pinking scissors to help me cut the edges so that they wouldn't fray as much. And then all I had to do was flip it to the right side and adjust, make sure all the sleeves got through. I used a chopstick to help with that, as I learned in class. And then flatten them with my fingers before eventually taking the iron and helping set those seams much better before trying them out on my Nendoroid dolls. And yeah, I did that 19 times to get all 19 shirts. Sorry for some of the not so great footage from actually sewing. I don't really have good lighting in my dining room, so that didn't come out quite as good as it could be. But yeah, that was the process of making all these shirts. So the end results. Some shirts came out way better than other shirts. I did kind of messed up on some of them. Like this green one right here, if you can see it. I did totally mess up on this arm. It ended up being way skinnier than I meant to, but that's just kind of practice in sewing. And this cotton was a lot stiffer and more difficult. And I find that with this one, if you remember, I used some like fraying, anti-fraying glue for it, and you can, with this material, you can definitely see where I did it, so that doesn't work very great for it. But yeah, there's that. I did try a couple of different things. I did go adjusting as I was sewing too, so some of these are definitely a little more wider than others, and some of them did end up a little thinner than others. Just playing around, figuring out what actually works better and what actually has the better fit, and where I actually like to do this sewing for under the arm. And then what else did I try? I did get pinking scissors halfway through the project, which kind of now makes invalid all the fraying glue I had originally used, because then I ended up cutting them with pinking scissors. I want to see after a while what gives the best result, what helps the shirts not fray so much. This definitely makes it a little less bulky, as you can see from the inside, so let's flip it back out. But we'll see in the long run what actually looks better. I do think this shirt came out really cute though, this green one, don't you think? I do have a couple of notes for the next time I make it. I think a lot of them, the neckline ended up way bigger than I kind of originally wanted. It's really hard to make the small neckline for such a small thing, but I think I can still try. And then I do want to try making some tighter ones, making ones with longer sleeves and such. I did try with the one that Shirogane is wearing. I tried using fabric glue to glue down that, like we saw when I flipped this over, the piece of fabric there, because sometimes with other ones when I put them on, the inner fabric kind of can stick out a bit. But then I did that and then I ironed it, and I think it kind of made it a little too stiff, and you could totally see right here where it got ironed, the glue was, that didn't, yeah, I don't like the result of how that looked. It just keeps that line too pressed, and it's not so great. I don't like it, so I don't think I'll be doing that again. I did try that. I forget if it was with this one. Yeah, this one also has, no, not this one. Let's see, which one did I do it? I did it on one of these other ones. Is it this one? Huh. I know I did it. I think it was actually the one that, yeah, it's this one, the one that Chica is wearing. I also did the gluing. It didn't do so bad, like right here where I ironed them afterwards to help with the seams a little bit. So, but I think this one had less glue than that one, so maybe that's why it didn't work out that way. If we could focus on Chica, and it came out kind of cute looking. For these skirts, I definitely put it in, and they ended up being a little bit of the narrower ones. The one Chica's wearing and the one that Kaguya is wearing. Let's see if we focus a little bit here again. Yeah, so this is definitely one shirt that ended up a lot more narrower, like this one, than compared to the first ones I did. So that's why I put it inside. But as you can see, I don't like how wide that neckline is. So next time I'll try to make them a little bit tighter around the neck, even though that's kind of difficult to do. We'll give it a try. And I do still think the sleeves are a cute length, but I could make them a tad shorter. That is something I would definitely like to try. And you can see here with Nezuko, with it outside on top of the skirt. I do think they came out pretty cute, not that they're being worn. I was afraid they might be too wide, but when they wear them, they actually still doesn't feel too wide, especially if I want them to go like over the pants. Let's put you down. Compare with Tanjiro, which is one of the first ones I finished, which you definitely tell, yeah, I was keeping it wider and not as tight under the armpits, and I think I do like it being a little more inside, tighter in here, but then becoming wider as it goes outside. I think that is the style I want to go for. I need to update my patterns and then try and see if that works better. But I do think these ones came out kind of cute, and it really does depend on the fabric, how stiff it is. I do find like this one was a lot stiffer of a fabric, and I really like this one was a lot softer and more malleable. So things to keep in mind. And then finally I have Hinata and Kageyama, which again, just like Tanjiro's, these were some of the first shirts I had completed, so they're a little bit on the wider side. I think it's before I started doing my adjustments. So you could see Kageyama down. You can see this isn't as quite defined compared to this one, where I think I started doing it a little bit more. And definitely compared towards the end right there. Sorry, focus. You can see how much more defined that edge is versus this one's a little more of a wider angle, and this one's a little bit of a smaller angle. So I definitely have a lot more work to do, a lot more trial and error. But now I have a whole bunch of these shirts to pose with and take pictures with. And I do think along the way my sewing has gotten better. These ones compared to other shirts do have a double hem fold instead of a single fold. So that should at least keep the edges fine. Yeah, you can see even with this one, I still need to draw my patterns better on the clothes as I go, because this arm definitely ended up being wider than this arm. It's just little things that I don't notice as much when I'm sewing that I need to get better at. But otherwise, I'm starting to meet my ends much better, and they're a little more even, so it's progress. I am definitely getting better at making this and better at using the iron in between steps. That really does help a lot to use your iron. But yeah, that's all my shirts. I hope you enjoyed going through this process with me. I am thinking that maybe once I get a shirt that I feel 100% confident and really like my pattern, that I might do a tutorial for it if it works out. But until then, I still feel like I'm a work in progress and I am a novice at this and still learning how to make all these shirts. But it's been fun and I'm definitely going to keep working on it. So I hope you enjoy that. If you have any tips for me for showing Nendoroid doll clothes or just doll clothes, small clothes in general, shoot me a comment. I would love to learn more. I still have a long way to go, even just making these very basic t-shirts. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, consider giving me a like and a subscribe. I post Nendoroid Collection videos or unboxing videos for blind boxes every Friday, depending, usually more Nendoroid collections than blind boxes, because I have over 100 different Nendoroids and I go through them one by one every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time right now. And yeah, come back to my channel and check it out. I will definitely make more of these videos. If you want to see more up-to-date progress, check out my TikTok. That's where I'm usually uploading the work in progress of all of my sewing skills and Nendoroid doll clothes. Sometimes I also post them on Instagram, but if you really want to stay on top, TikTok, A Small Geeky Chica, I'll be right there. That's it for today. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed everything, and I'll be seeing you next time. I hope so. Bye for now.